Saturday, February 10th. It's noon Eastern time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. It's time for my weekly Ask Me Anything live stream. Before we get to that, footballguys.com. That's the website. You can find my work. I have an article out right now. In and Out, Super Bowl edition. Happy Super Bowl Eve, people. Super Bowl 58 coming tomorrow. Kansas City Chiefs taking on the San Francisco 49ers. We might talk about that. Happy to have entertain any questions or issues you have with that. Appreciate you joining me here every Saturday at this time. Also Wednesdays, 7 p.m. for the On the Hot Seat live streams. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, like me or not. I mean, the algorithm likes it when you like me. It also likes it if you don't like me. So do the one that you feel best about. And again, it's happy Super Bowl 58. It is upon us. You've been listening on the Football Diehards radio program on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, which has been on Mondays, Thursday, Fridays, and today we'll be on from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. Also, we're doing a Super Bowl, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Super Bowl roundtable will be what we're doing tomorrow at 3 p.m. Sunday before the game, leading up to the game, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. Have a great lineup who will be joining us, talking about the entire game. Right, it'll be a good time. Mike Dempsey and I, of course, will be hosting. Let me give you the whole rundown. Hanson will be there. Let me give you the whole rundown. I should have looked that up in advance. By the way, hope everyone's doing well. Hope you're all having a great day. Hi, Andrea. Nice to see you. Hey, Scott. Good to see you, man. Hope all is well. It is getting close to Super Bowl. Let's go. All excited about that. So we'll be doing the kind of the, I guess you want to call it the round table. So here's what we have. Here's what you can be ready for. John Hanson joining us, Jeff Ratcliffe joining us, I believe from Vegas, Kyle Elfrink, Joe Ranieri from Sports Grid Radio, Jeff Manns, Jeff Erickson, Howard Bender, Real Talk Raf. We'll be getting the favorite prop bets from all those people. We did a prop bet draft last night that was kind of enjoyable. Dempsey, myself, and our two producers. We can run through some of that if you'd like, and we can discuss prop bets here. I am not a gambling expert, but I pretend to be one at times on the radio, so feel free to throw out your favorites in the chat. We'll be happy to entertain them. We'll kind of talk about how we think the game is going to play out. So yeah, tune in later today. By the way, today's show, Marcus Grant will be joining us, and the great Eric Romoff. You all know from this very YouTube channel and other places. So they'll be on. Eric will be talking DFS. Marcus will just talk Super Bowl and just big picture 2024 stuff. Hello, Wendy. Good to see you. Hello, Albert. Thanks for everyone for coming. I appreciate you. I don't know how much interest there is in the Super Bowl among the fantasy world, but there is some. So we'll chop it up here. I'll kind of run you through what I think or how I think the game might play out. Yes, Marcus and Eric. That is true, Wendy. Don't miss it. I know you won't. So yeah, we'll kind of talk about some of the scenarios for how this game might play out or how we see it playing out. If you want to jump in with your comments and let me know what you think. Before we get to the game, there were a couple things. Did you guys watch the NFL Honors Program? I get to see like the first hour of it, then I'm on the radio, so I'm watching, but I can't hear. Some of it looks like a good time, right? Like Keegan Michael, the host looks great. Botch his name. Keegan Michael Key, I should say it right. And it all looks like good fun, and the players all get involved, and there's some stuff. Is anyway, like some of it as I watch from the side looks a little cringy, but I don't know. Like I know any kind of entertainment, where you're having non-entertaining people do entertainment, you're taking your chances, right? So you have to watch that. But I think the general thought is it's a pretty good show, pretty entertaining. They gave out the awards. I think that's the thing that interests me. I'd like to hear your thoughts on them. Let's run them out here. Lamar Jackson MVP. I don't think there's any argument there. I thought there were some other worthy candidates. One of them, Christian McCaffrey, won the Offensive Player of the Year award. That made sense to me. Myles Garrett winning Defensive Player of the Year seemed like it was his turn. TJ Watt's not happy about that. I don't know. What do you think about that? CJ Stroud, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Will Anderson Jr., the second straight year that the Offensive and Defensive Rookies of the Year have come from the same team. Last year it was the Jets with Garrett and Sauce Gardner. So Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. So that was great. Is this a reflection of great drafting or just teams that are horrible getting really good draft picks? I think maybe that. Comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco. I don't know. I thought Baker Mayfield should have won. Based on his expression, I think Baker Mayfield thought Baker Mayfield should have won. I know there was a lot of Jamar Hamlin. Andrea, what do you think? Did Jamar Hamlin deserve comeback player of the year? I felt like, like obviously we all know the story and it was fantastic and stuff. Did he do enough on the field to merit that, or was it just such a huge comeback from near death on the field that, that none of that mattered, just the fact that he came back? I think Flacco, you can make that argument. I thought it was interesting. Part of the season, I thought Baker Mayfield more sustained success over the course of the entire year, got the Bucs into the playoffs unexpectedly. I thought, that would have been my vote if I was voting. Coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski or Steven Stefanski, depending on who's announcing him. Before the game, Jim Schwartz, the assistant coach of the year. So the Browns sweep there as well. The defense coordinator of the Browns. Walter Payton, man of the year, Cameron Hayward, and his speech was great. I watched the replay of that. Good morning, Scampers. Good morning, Dame. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you. Gonna chop up the Super Bowl here a little bit. Get through these awards. Anyone have arguments like so? The Los Angeles contingent. I mean, I thought Puka Nacua did not get much love for Rookie of the Year. I thought he would get more. I guess quarterbacks always get it. We'll talk about that when we get to the Super Bowl. Maybe a little bit, like the MVP chances for players, non-quarterback players. I have one that I think is, I've told myself a happy story about this game and how I'm approaching it. And it's not necessarily quarterback centric. Yes, Scott, you knew. Man, it's good to see you back here, Scott. It's been a little while. I know you got some stuff going on coming up this year. I'm excited to hear about it. Put it in the chat. City of Buffalo, not about Hamlin. Fair enough. I guess I totally get why, he would be in there. It was a huge thing, right? I mean, a huge story. The voters were jealous of Puka's good looks. This is probably true. I don't know if you saw Matt Harmon interview him at the Super Bowl this week on Radio Row. Great interview. And Puka seemed to be having a really good time. I mean, it was like a, record-setting season for him. I mean, I'm not going to argue against. I'm looking at this from a fantasy perspective. Both of those guys were phenomenal, and I'm not going to argue against the quarterback getting the awards because they're quarterbacks. They are the figurehead of the team. But man, great season for Puka Nacua, and I wish he would get a little more recognition for it. But he'll get more recognition in drafts this coming season. All the drafts I've been in, he's going off the board mighty early. So I thought that was good. It just, if you just jumped in here a minute ago, I was just wondering, watching more than listening to the NFL Honor Show. Keegan Michael Key looks fantastic. I think the parts I was able to see, he's like on point. But like players getting like into the mix, is it cringy for you or is it cool? I mean, without having the sound on, I thought it looked like a really good time. So maybe I should rewatch the whole thing. So I don't want to comment on it. I'd rather hear your comments without having watch the entire replay. It was on later in the night, but I didn't pay that much attention then either. Maybe it wasn't that great. They made the commissioner disappear. I'm sure there are many people who would like to be in on that. So the game is coming, right? We're going to have I'm excited for this game. I've told myself, a story about the outcome. By the way, let's see what Scott. Fantasy and Frames has just landed Scott Kobe, one of the greatest high-stakes players in the nation. He'll work with Stacey Perez. I love that group, but Stacey's a regular on the radio program, has been on this live stream. Just had Chris Battistill from Fantasy and Frames on last night. Rhett Manuel, Drew, Gator, Jorge. Love all that. Nate Markham. I'm going to leave somebody off and feel stupid. Keith Fleming. Everybody, that whole group. Does a great job. So, Scott, you'll be a great addition to that. And I know people will be catching you there and probably many other places as you will be a popular guest, no doubt. So congratulations on that, Scott. And I appreciate you coming all the time, man. You're a great guy. And I'm happy that someone's going to take advantage of all that damn knowledge you have because it is copious. So we're heading to the Super Bowl. And in case you didn't know, it's in Las Vegas. And Taylor Swift's going to go. I just have it on the reporting. Like, I thought they said like a week ago she was going to make it there, right? But like every day I see a new report. Is she going to make it or not? I mean, I think she's there. I mean, what the heck? How could she not get there? The time zones work in her favor. Anyway, I would be interested to hear. I think people get sick of all the Taylor Swift chatter. I don't think it's a huge deal. I don't think it dominates as much as maybe we want to. Is the conversation makes it sound like it dominates. I think once the game's on, I don't care if they show her 4 or 5 times watching the game. You see a lot of people watching the game. So I don't know. Just it seems like I get why the NFL wants to leverage that. There's an entirely new universe of fans who are being introduced to the NFL through Taylor Swift, and good for that. I mean, more power to them. So I don't know. I don't see any negatives to it, but I know like a lot of people have strong feelings about it. If you have strong feelings about it, I'd like to hear that as well. So let's get into the game a little bit. Injury report. Nothing too exciting except Joe Thuney being out. Right, that's a big deal for Kansas City. Let me bring up the full injury report so I don't screw it up. On the San Francisco side of the ball, everyone's good to go. Kalia Davis, defensive tackle, no biggie. Ankle, he's questionable. Trent Williams got a day of rest. No worries there. Everyone else, George Kittle has a toe issue. He's off the injury report heading into the game. Kyle Shanahan addressed, said it's not an issue. It was not an issue last game either. For the Chiefs, no Joe Thuney, no Prince Tanga Wanahogo. I can say that right. Jerick McKinnon questionable, but he's got to be activated from IR. Sky Moore was activated from IR earlier this week. We'll see who is active among that group. I have an article up about some of the outlier players. If you want to check that out, Football Guys, it's great. All the rankings and projections are available there as well for this game. So just seems like it's a 1-game slate. You're going to play everybody. I feel like this week, right? Let me ask you this: is there anyone you're not playing? Is anyone off limits to you in your DFS lineups? I've got to set my my postseason contest lineups and see how bad I've screwed up and left myself in corners with players because I didn't think Kansas City was going to make it to the Super Bowl. I may have used them a little more heavily. I expected it to be San Francisco and Baltimore. So I'll just spit this out right now. I've not made a secret of it. I think San Francisco is going to win. I picked it to be 31-24. And I think it's going to be Christian McCaffrey based. And so NFL.com had an interesting piece up the 4 keys to the game. We'll talk about those a little bit and where I think they stand or how I rank them in terms of, keys to the game. And their first key, the first thing to watch is the quarterback play, which is obvious. Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has gotten on point, have him projected slightly ahead of Purdy in this one. I thought Purdy looked great in the last game, second half. But let's face it, there's been 2 games where the entire San Francisco team has come up short early in the game. So, I mean, that's got to be because they can't. I don't think there's going to be a comeback like we saw against Detroit against this Kansas City team. So Brock Purdy needs to get on point. I think more importantly, though, the defense needs to be on point. Scott thinks Brandon Ayuk may be out. Jarius Sneed might be the reason why. I think that's a fair assessment. I don't think, if you're betting the props or you're looking at them, I mean, the 4.5 catches seems, not unreasonable. But this does set up to be a Deebo Samuel or more of a Deebo Samuel game, I would think. Too high safety look, him finding holes in that, Christian McCaffrey being a huge factor. So, but it's all going to rely on Purdy finding those targets. And so I think this is a big game for Brock Purdy. And if you've been listening to the radio program, we've kind of gone the gamut on this one. Mike Dempsey thinks that let's say Brock Purdy goes out and has an entire game like the game we saw the first half of the Detroit game. Mike Dempsey thinks that he will be that there's a very good chance he won't be the starting quarterback next year. I disagree with that. I think they view and I get I get the discussion, right? They've set themselves up for it. They set themselves up for it by moving on quickly from quarterbacks who they've invested great deals of draft capital or cash in the form of Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance to get to Brock Purdy. I think they view Brock Purdy differently than they view those other pieces. He's done something. I know last year, and everyone has openly admitted that Kyle Shanahan thought about pursuing Tom Brady, but that was with Brock Purdy having an elbow injury and having surgery. That put his season in question. I don't know if anyone knew where it was going to be at the point they were having that discussion. So, I'm not I'm not looking at it like that. I think Brock Purdy is a guy that's earned. I think he's earned his spot. If you listen to the way they talked about him heading into this week, Jed York talked a little bit about him. How Kyle Shanahan said early on, like, I think our best quarterback might be the third quarterback, and they were still going through the process with Garoppolo and Lance, and they were going to let that see how it plays out. But the hunch already at that point was this guy might be the best guy. And why is he the best guy? Why is that? Well, because and by the way, this is I agree with this, and it's one of the reasons. I mean, sometimes people just get due. And I think that's like the gut feeling is just his turn. That's just a gut feeling, right? But there's a little bit to hang your hat on there, and so I think Shanahan. Why is Brock Purdy succeeding? Because he executes the Shanahan scheme the way Shanahan wants it executed. That's why he's on the field. I don't think that changes because he has a lousy game or because he throws a pass a little short, a la Jimmy Garoppolo, which like soured them. I think Trey Lance just wasn't fitting in with the scheme, and that was why they decided they made a mistake, right? And what like it's interesting how we view these situations, right? Like, oh, what a horrible mistake drafting Brock Purdy, and you look at you're so stupid, you have to let him go. Well, are they stupid or are they just like, look, we made a mistake, we got to fix it, and him being around doesn't fix it, right? I mean, I think there's something to be said for a team that's willing to acknowledge they made a mistake and move on from it. Knowing the heat they'll catch for doing that. And and also, the Purdy contract can't be overlooked. I mean, that puts the 49ers in an advantageous situation for the next couple of years. So I don't see them moving on from that no matter what happens. There are probably plenty of reasons if they lose this game, they'll have lost this game. If their defense plays the way it did the last two games, or at least, is it lackadaisical? Doesn't seem to be playing with the kind of enthusiasm and intensity it takes. I don't think that's going to be an issue in this game. I just don't. If it is, that's on Kyle Shanahan, and that's on them, and it'll be, that'll be the bigger conversation for me. The Purdy conversation is the one everyone will be having, though. The 49ers lose, that's going to be dominant offseason story. Cool, can they win the big one? Well, they get to the big one, right? That's 2 years of heading at least to the NFC Championship game, and this year to the Super Bowl. So I think it's interesting. If the 49ers win, my lean for MVP is Christian McCaffrey. The story I've told myself is that Brock Purdy is serviceable in this game. Like, I think the overs and unders on the quarterback, the numbers seem about right to me. Let me bring up the passing props. I want to say it's like two. It seems like really. I had them all in front of me. Passing props. Hey, FanDuel makes it so easy. Mm-hmm. I think I'm on the right page. Anyway, I think it's like 272, I want to say, for McCaffrey and 242. Um, Unbelievable. I had all this right up in front of me. Amazing. Uh, Bear with me, people. I'm old and feeble, and it's hard for me to keep up, apparently. TD props, scoring props, game props. I want the specials. I just want the bets. Player props. Wow. There it is. Good Lord. Patrick Mahomes passing yards, 261, I think is a reasonable number. I can go either way. Purdy passing yards, 246. The projections for me have them both slightly higher than that. I could see either way. Either way, I think. Thank you, Scott. I was looking on FanDuel, and it's like a convoluted. There's a lot of props available out there, right? So I like both of them. Juice for MVP, Kyle Juszczyk seems like a reasonable. Andrea likes the over 4.5. I like that too. That's one of my favorite props because I think people aren't in on it. 246 for 250. Yeah, 262. I think both those numbers are reachable. Under on penalties, hopefully. Yes, I think that's fair. There's a couple of I was on with Billy Musio and Theo Greminger on the Player Profile Pod earlier this week, and Billy brought up a great prop. Sam Darnold plus 20,000 for MVP. Like if something happened, put a couple of units there just in case. Like I buy a lottery ticket every week. I don't know if the odds are any worse on Sam Darnold than they are on the lotto. So over on punts. Anyone going exotic with like the octopus or any interesting props along those lines? I'll bring up We did I mentioned we did the prop draft. Prop draft bets. So here were my props that I picked in the draft. You had to draft a tight end prop, a wide receiver prop, a running back prop, and then you could have a couple of flexes. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, and a couple of outliers. So my quarterback prop was I have Brock Purdy no interception at plus 108. My running back prop is Christian McCaffrey plus 2 TDs at plus 230. Yes, I love the plus money. Kelsey, the wide receiver prop, I'm going with MVS at 19.5. I'm taking the over there. I think he makes at least one play, and that's probably going to be enough for that. My tight end is Kelsey over the 72.5 yards. That's a minus 110. By the way, the MVS is minus 110 as well. Then my two flexes were Debo TD at plus 150, and the fastest ball carrier of the game per next gen stats is Christian McCaffrey at plus 590. So there's no end to the shenanigans. Either kickers, anybody betting the doink, that's always very popular. I think it's like what plus 7 something. Took over 315 for the first drive. Because everyone here betting props, are we all doing this? Is this become a thing? I mean, it seems like now that we have the legalized sports betting, that it's like just become an extension of fantasy, right? I mean, that's the way we're treating it serious. I think that's just the way people see it. And it's kind of the prop bets kind of fit in with the fantasy mindset, right? We're projecting players, we're projecting totals. All those things are super interesting to me. The way it works out. So getting back to the game itself, we'll get back to the props if you have any interesting ones, throw them in there. But I do think the quarterback situation, thinking Patrick Mahomes, Sigmund Bloom talked a little bit about this on the Audible podcast, I think yesterday. Like, when people go mountain climbing, they need oxygen. The Sherpas who carry all their stuff don't because they're used to it, right? So there's something to be said for the Chiefs more recently having been at the Super Bowl. I get that. It's a different kind of stage. There's a lot of distractions, a lot of things going on. I think Kyle Shanahan's been there enough, and some of the 49ers have been there enough that maybe they can help the younger players who have not been there get there. And so I think that's maybe a little overplayed, but there is something to it, right? Familiarity leads to comfort, but maybe complacency. No, I don't think they're going to be complacency. 60-40 props over sides most of the weeks. There you go. That seems reasonable. Anyone just into betting the game straight up? I mean, I've obviously San Francisco, and I'm taking the I am going beating -2. I have the over. I think is at 47.5. I'm going over 50 points. So I think all those bets would be easy for me. Any exotic bets for y'all out there, like the Gatorade, the purple Gatorade? I don't know. There's so much, man. It's so much. I'm going through, like, you saw me have trouble navigating the FanDuel, just getting to the player props. That's because there's so many damn props. The Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem at 90 seconds. I think she goes faster than that. She's older like me. We like to get stuff done. Back to the game. So the running games are going to be interesting, right? So I think, Isaiah Pacheco, I think I like both the running back props. I think are fair game to me. Let me get to the rushing props here. Now that I found where the props are. Christian McCaffrey rushing yards is 89.5. I think he hits that. I want to say Pacheco 68.5. I think he hits that. So I've told myself the happy story. It's going to be a close game, something similar to what we saw with Baltimore, Kansas City. Both teams playing it very close, but I think a couple big Christian McCaffrey plays makes a difference. So I think I would take his total yards. I think his receiving number is 33.5 as well. I like that. I like the total number. So I've told myself the story that Christian McCaffrey is going to be the big factor in winning this game. So I would be betting all his props pretty much. Seem like they make. Elijah Mitchell over 4.5 rushing yards. I don't know that I like that, but I think that's possible, right? Scott Covey took Kansas City to win at plus 522 2 weeks before the season ended. Wow, nice. Coin toss. So yeah, I think the Elijah Mitchell. My article this week is all about all the outlier players. I like MVS the most among those because I think he has the most consistent role, and he's come on to the playoffs, 5 catches, 108 yards in the postseason, has not dropped too many passes. Just needs one big play, right? And I think the Chiefs are going to need big play. Travis Kelsey, seems like deadlock, and so you're digging down into like I think all the top players, right? Like Purdy and Mahomes, McCaffrey and Pacheco, Rashee Rice. I think the numbers are good there. Deebo Samuel ahead of Brandon Ayuk, but Brandon Ayuk not bereft. Although the sneak coverage is a little bit of concern, but I don't think his numbers are insurmountable there. I don't even think George Kittle's numbers are insurmountable. And he's at kind of the bottom of the heap of the starters. But I think after that, you've got an interesting group of players, right? If we're just kind of like sorting through all that, let's take a look at what we have here. MVS, my favorite. Had 21 catches in the regular season, 315 yards, 1 TD. But so far, I mentioned 5 catches, 108 yards in the playoffs, 32-yard catch late against Baltimore that kind of sealed the deal in that game. He seems really well positioned to get a similar big play, but he scored no touchdowns in the previous 12 games and 0 in his last 4 playoff games. But prior to that, in each of his 3 postseason outings in 2022 with Kansas City, and that's twice, and once with Green Bay in 2020, he had touchdowns in all of those games. So it's a tough matchup in general. I think they need a big play that MVS will get in the line for a big play. I think on the other side of the ball, Juwan Jennings, third and Juwan, as they call him, has demonstrated the ability to come up in a pinch, right? The problem for me is, with Samuel on the field, he becomes a bit of an afterthought. That said, he's still on the field for 40% of the snaps, so having him as a dart toss seems reasonable. The rest of the Chiefs receivers, I mean, there's a whole cottage industry of that, right? Noah Gray, Justin Watson, Richie James, Mecole Hardman, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. If any of those guys who are active score a touchdown, and that field will be thinned by the inactive announcement. Noah Gray, they've been playing more 2 tight end sets in the playoffs. Hasn't turned into a lot, right? And I keep thinking, he's probably due for that one-off touchdown. Justin Watson's regular season role has been better than the postseason. He had 8.9% target share in the regular season, ahead of Valdez-Scantling. And he had a 26% air yard share that was also ahead of MVS. But those numbers have reversed in the playoffs, and Watson's down to like a 4.9 target share, 9.3% air yard share. Both of those behind Valdez-Scantling and Gray. Richie James, just 1 target last game, which puts him ahead of the rest of the field. Mecole Hardman, is he in the doghouse after that fumble against Buffalo that could have cost them the game? He was only on the field for 1 snap in Baltimore. But he does have a little playoff history. He scored 3 touchdowns in 2 career games versus the 49ers. By the way, Richie James, revenge game. If you're into that narrative, somewhere out there, Michael Fabiano's head snapped up revenge game. I'll take that. Here we got some more props. So I think all those, like Kadarius Toney, even if he gets it, so what has San Francisco been a little bit susceptible to? Those short runs outside the tackles, right? If the Chiefs, if you saw one of those players, whether it was Kadarius Toney, Hardman, Sky Moore, even getting one of those little jet sweeps or something at the goal line, then turning that into a touchdown. Jerick McKinnon will be a dart toss, but he's got to be activated today to make it on the field. He is listed as questionable officially. Scampers likes the Fred Warner over 9.5 tackles, and I do think thinking like Pacheco's volume has been great, right? Like we're up in the 20 touches a game, close to 20 carries a game in the postseason, and down the stretch as well. He's scored a touchdown every game. Warner could be a big factor in the Travis Kelsey portion of this affair as well. So I like that too. So yeah, I'm in on that one. I hadn't thought about the defense. Look at Scampers going next level on me. I'm sitting here playing checkers. Scampers out there playing prop betting chess. Damn it. Andrea likes Justin Watson. Maybe I think all these are reasonable dart toss. Noah Gray, Scott Kobe thinks Noah Gray goes over his prop. San Francisco has not covered number 2 tight ends well at all, and he has been playing more. I think that's the big point. That's kind of been a shift in the playoffs. We'll see if that continues. That trend continues. Outside of that, the running backs, what kind of got me on this was, Elijah Mitchell looks no further than the Detroit game, right? Christian McCaffrey's scampering for his third, what would have been his third touchdown, and trips up, lands on his head, and there's your 3-yard touchdown for Elijah Mitchell. That is entirely possible. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if there is no Jerick McKinnon, I think that they might cancel each other out if that's the case. So Andy Reid said on Tuesday he didn't think McKinnon would play. I think that may have changed. I think he has a better chance. I mean, they listing him as questionable. We'll know today, 4:00 Eastern time deadline, if you're watching those things, to see if he is added to the active roster. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I made the 2 starts in December, averaged just under 4 yards a carry in the 2 games he started. Pacheco had the shoulder injury and then sat out week 18. He needs a super good combination to find the end zone. The anytime touchdown odds are at plus 600, so he's a long shot. It's more of a long shot. McKinnon plays. Juszczyk, who has gotten his props already here, does have a Super Bowl touchdown on his resume. So caught a 15-yarder from Jude Garoppolo in the Chiefs win the last 2 times these teams met in the Super Bowl. I think Scott Ostler from the San Francisco Chronicle wrote, Juszczyk touches the ball about as often as the cheerleaders do, but he's really effective when he gets it. But it hasn't been his great season. The rest of the players out there, like, I would not advocate playing anybody, but Blake Bell is, 2 career touchdowns. Ronnie Bell, Ray McLeod, Chris Connolly, Justin Ross, Jordan Mason, Michael P. Ryan, Charlie Warner, Braden Willis, or, like, anything is possible on Super Sunday. I cannot advocate any investments in those players, but I, like, if somebody wins $1 million, somebody wins a DFS tournament with one of those guys showing up, like, would that be the most surprising thing in the world? No. I think that's my favorite. That was with the receiver prop I drafted in that draft, Scott. 19.5 yards. I think that's 1 catch. So I'm hoping for that. JSC, looking ahead to 2024. I was going to get into that a little bit. By the way, we're about halfway through. I'm Bob Harris. Thanks for coming. Super Bowl edition of the Ask Me Anything live stream. We'll take any of your questions, though. Happy to hear what you have. We've been, chopping up the Super Bowl left and right over the first half. I'll kind of finish up quickly with the analysis here. I think the running backs are going to be key in this game for both sides. Isaiah Pacheco has been dominant. San Francisco is, over the course of the season, has been tough to run against. In the playoffs, not so much, according to Aaron Jones. And last game, I thought, like, can somebody pound it up the middle, or is it like the guys that run on the edges and get outside like Aaron Jones? Well, David Montgomery had a big game last week, running it right up the gut. So Pacheco's averaged 4 yards a carry, has 3 touchdowns so far in the preseason, leads the team with 281 scrimmage yards, so he gets some receiving work as well. I think he's a solid play, and I think they'll lean on him heavily. I think if the Chiefs are going to win, though, he's not what's going to win it. I think if the 49ers win, Christian McCaffrey will be what wins it, right? To me, I mean, player of the year, career high 1,459 rushing yards, 21 total touchdowns during the regular season. Great receiving asset. I mean, everything about him. I mean, they have great weapons around him, and like Deebo Samuel rises up and makes a big play, no surprise. Kittle and Brandon Ayuk as well. But I think for the Chiefs side, and Charles Omenihu went out with the torn ACL. That leaves it a little tougher, stopping the run for them. With Chris Jones, George Karlaftis will have to be big pieces and slowing down Christian McCaffrey if they're going to slow him down. So we'll figure it out. We'll figure out what happens. I'm counting on McCaffrey to have a big game. The narrative I've told myself in crafting a San Francisco win, or predicting a San Francisco win, and the 31-24 score is it's a very close game outside of 2 big Christian McCaffrey plays. So that's why I've laid down the plus 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns or more for McCaffrey is one of my props this week. So there you have it. Super Bowl. What are y'all eating? All right, I'm Bob Harris. If you haven't been here before, I do this every Saturday, ask all kinds of questions, and we'll dig into some of the other off-season issues that are coming up here. Been doing a lot of Dynasty talk on the radio program. By the way, I made a mistake. I blame Mike Dempsey. The show. So I thought like this week was our last week with 4 shows. Next week is our last week with 4 shows. So we'll be on this coming week, Monday, Thursday, Friday, the usual time, 10 p.m. Eastern time, and go until midnight. Saturday, which will be our regular time all off season long, will be on 3 to 5. So next week, Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Today I'll be on from 3 to 5. Tomorrow I'll be on from 3 to 6. Dempsey and I on the SiriusXM Super Bowl Roundtable program that you don't want to miss. I mentioned it before. Great group of guests. John Hansen, Jeff Ratcliffe, Kyle Elfrink, Joe Ranieri, Jeff Mans, Jeff Erickson, Howard Bender, Real Talk Raf. They're all going to come on. They're all going to make their game pick. They're all going to share their favorite props with us, and maybe a player that they think that is maybe an unsung player for next year, fantasy player for next year that they're going to kind of ready to plant their flag on. Start planting flags early. Why not? We've already been planting flags here. If you've been here every week, I've been doing that. We've been doing it on the hot seat as well on Wednesdays. So tune in for that. So I am doing. Hello, Mel. How are you? And Jesse, I'll get to this here in a minute, right? We'll discuss a little going forward here. I put a star on that, so I won't forget you, man. So what I'm doing tomorrow is I'm getting up. I'm reading a bunch of news, doing some stuff, prepping for the pregame show. I'll spend 3 hours then on the radio, and then I'm going to sit down with my lovely fiance, and we're going to watch the game and eat snacks. That's it. That's the excitement. So I hope you're all having a good time. Yeah, see, the game is set up to go in the Chiefs' favor. I'm not sure I'm buying into setups. Wings and pizzas. Yeah, there you go. That's a good choice. Everyone likes the wings. I need to do more wings, I think. JSC, loving some Scott Kobe in here. Mark Spafford, any players that didn't have the stats for whatever reason this year, we figure Jay makes a big jump next year. We'll talk a little bit about that. Tri-tip and queso. Ooh, that's delicious. Thank you, Sniper Mel. It will be fun. So let's get on to some of these questions, some of the next year questions. Dempsey and I have started talking about a lot of dynasty stuff, and that's the NFL is joyous, right? We get out of the Super Bowl and we can start managing our dynasty rosters and doing all the fun work and catching up on rookies. I will acknowledge I'm not up to speed on the rookies. I know the high end. I talk to Matt Waldman a couple times every week, and by osmosis, I start gaining more information, but also having a lot of great guests on the radio program, and that'll be the focus on Saturdays over the course of the offseason to get up to speed on the rookie class. And, we'll be doing a lot of mock drafts Mondays, except on Saturdays, simulation Saturdays. We've already done, I'm about 5 drafts in so far, in the middle of one right now with the NFL.com crew. So, like the player I want to be all in on this year, ask me anything. Is my fiance into fantasy football? Only to the degree that she has to sit here and listen to me talk about it endlessly. And endlessly, right? She hears every show. She hears every radio show. So to that degree, yes, she is into it. Like enthusiastically, I don't know. Exactly that. So my guy, I want to guy coming in this year. I don't know if there's anyone coming in this year. If I know enough about the rookies, I know Caleb Williams is all about this. I would like to have Anthony Richardson on as many rosters as I can. I like what I saw. JSC likes Dalton Kincaid and Trey McBride. Big fan of both. I think those are both going to be very high on the dynasty rankings. Sam Laporta, I think on most dynasty rankings is going to be number 1. I think like Travis Kelce is still super viable playing dynasty. I mean, if I was in a dynasty startup and the worst thing that happened to me was I got Travis Kelce, I would figure that out for a year or maybe 2, right? I mean, I still think that gives you some opportunities there. But yes, I think those young tight ends are great, and we'll see if some of the other tight ends can get the job done. We've got Brock Bowers coming in, who everyone seems really excited about. So I don't know if that's going to be, is he going to be the next big tight end to get the job done? I saw a photo of him with Rob Gronkowski at Radio Row, and that seemed like Gronk is just so much bigger than everyone. When I watch like the pregame shows, right? He's so much bigger than like Howie and just everyone around him is like he dwarfs them. I saw my buddy Dave Kluge had the image of Bowers and and Gronk up, and he's saying I'm adjusting Gronk up in my dynasty ranking. Bowers didn't look like that imposing a physical specimen, but he does stay on the field a lot. I think he's going to be, like he looks like a guy that maybe we should be paying a lot of attention to if we're looking for that next. Is it Sam Laporta or Trey McBride, whatever? I mean, it's Sam Laporta, instant impact, instant high impact rookie. And remember, had talked to Andy Behrens on the radio program last week, and he had been pounding that since I went back and I was watching the video we did at the Fantasy Football Expo, the initial panel, and we talked about our flag plant players. Mine was Jahmyr Gibbs, but Andy was like just advocating like hell for Sam Laporta. I mean, Brock Bowers seems like that kind of guy. I mean, the only thing that keeping everyone from being maybe all in on Brock Bowers is the memory of Kyle Pitts, right? A guy that came in like was a can't miss prospect that missed. But still, does that keep you from drafting a guy like Bowers? I mean, landing spot's going to be an issue. But boy, that's this looks like a special talent in a position that's shown that think about the evolution of players coming into the league. Like quarterbacks now can come in playing some wide receivers. And a lot of this is due to the offenses they're running in college. They're running spread offenses that allow these guys to come right in. We used to talk about wide receivers, that third-year breakout. Well, no, it's not necessarily that anymore. They're coming pro-ready. Tight end hasn't done that. Maybe we're seeing the start of that as we get into here. So CJ Stroud or Joe Burrow 2024? I think that's an interesting question. I want to bring up the Fantasy Pros rankings here because I was looking at them last night and I thought it was interesting. And CJ Stroud is going well ahead of Joe Burrow, right? In just a regular league. Dynasty rankings might be a little different. Let me check the dynasty rankings. Joe Burrow 1 ahead, 5-6 for CJ Stroud. But in regular redraft, just in regular PPR draft rankings, it is CJ Stroud well ahead of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's down at 9. I think that's probably lower. I think that'll rise up as we get closer to the season. So it's Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud at 5. Dak Prescott at 6, Anthony Richardson at 7. Boy, I've been trying to land Anthony Richardson in every single draft, and I am missing in every single draft. I'm missing by a round, and it is irritating the hell out of me. That'll probably change. Andy's career would have taken. Andy's career would have ended if Laporta didn't hit. Andy would have felt like his career ended, but it would not have. But he was all in. I mean, you do that with players. You pound the table. I mean, I like the first half of this year was I really happy for how hard I advocated for Jahmyr Gibbs? No, but I still believed in it. I still believed what I said about it. And you can be both right and wrong, right? Like how you viewed it was maybe correct. The outcomes can vary, right? So that's the fun of this game. You just never know what the outcomes are. The process, everyone says stick to the process, right? And I'm a big believer in that. The best decisions don't always yield the best outcomes. That's just the facts of this game. Of football in general, and that's what makes it fun. She's into like a cat in the bathtub. So my big cat was in the bathtub this week. I've started giving him regular baths. Ming the Merciless. He'll turn 17 in May. 26 pounds, all 26 pounds of him, at least the last time I put him on the scale. So I've been doing that. He has claws bigger than me. So I've given him now 2 baths. So the second bath was way more successful than the first bath. And he likes the baths when it's over. He's not a big fan of the baths while the bath is in process. Underway is not his favorite part of the bath. In the water with the soap, not the part of the bath he enjoys. Being done with the bath and getting out is the part he enjoys. Works well. Yes, Ming the Merciless, 17 years old. Congratulations to him. In May, doing well. So JSC, 3 surprise pick NFL teams in 2024. He's going to say the Colts, Falcons, and Cardinals. I mean, the Falcons are a quarterback away from being a surprise team, right? I mean, so there was another question on there I saw about the Cardinals that I missed probably. Let me scroll back up. I hate it when I miss things. It was a pretty good comment about the Cardinals. There it was. JC. Any chance the Cardinals surprise a lot of people? Well, yes. I mean, if everything goes their way, we'll see. I thought Drew Petzing's offense, Kyler Murray fit well in that. Do they keep Marquise Brown? I think that's a big factor. Think about this: they land Marvin Harrison Jr. with that 4th pick overall. Just guessing here. They have Trey McBride. They keep Marquise Brown. That's pretty formidable receiving core, right? James Conner can still play. They need some work on their offensive line. But yeah, I think the Cardinals could surprise quickly. I'm going to give my regular mea culpas here and say Jonathan Gannon turned out to be a way better coach. He had those guys playing a lot harder than I expected. We can, if you think back to when I watched that video of him giving the big pep talk for the team, and the team looking utterly disinterested in everything he was saying. Just looked like they couldn't have cared less. Well, apparently at some point the message started resonating because he had that team out there playing way above their talent level. So yes, I could see the Cardinals surprising some people. Maybe not you and me, JC. Maybe less us. Do I think CJ Stroud picks up where he left off in 2024? I am happy that Bobby Slowick remains in place. I think that was going to be a big issue, right? There was some offensive coordinators that could have left. Well, Ben Johnson being the most obvious. I feel like that, Dan Campbell has kind of instilled, had time to instill, a mindset on that team where they probably could have overcome loss of offensive coordinator. Not that it would have been insignificant, but I think maybe they've been developing someone in-house. They know that he's going to be moving on at some point. So I think there are probably some plans in place, or they've been working on some plans, or at least have some ideas what they're going to do. By the way, I saw see if I can bring it up. Brad Holmes, man, gave his postseason press conference. Man, he was passing out the receipts, people. He was passing out the receipts on Gibbs, Laporta, all his draft picks, just on the season in general. It was glorious. So I think the Lions were kind of better set up. I would have been a little worried if Bobby Slowick moved on in Houston. I mean, you have this quarterback who, objectively, like, there's a lot of reminder. All the talk before the draft is just talk. Remember how CJ Stroud did lousy on that test, couldn't do a damn thing. I mean, like, until they get on the field and you get them in a scheme and the coaching staff starts working with them and the supporting cast starts gelling with them, you don't know what the hell you're going to get, right? Bryce Young, was he a can't miss prospect? Maybe he still is, but he was can't miss. He was can't hit in the circumstances he was tossed into, with an offensive line that can't pass protect, a coaching staff that was clearly feeling the pressure from above and trying to do things. They didn't have the receiving core they needed to maximize his abilities, along with the offensive line that couldn't protect him. I mean, there were so many pieces there that didn't go right. And everything went right for Stroud, including having that scheme. And like, are we going to call him? So Brock Purdy, we're calling a game manager, because I mean, he still makes big plays, but he runs that scheme really well, or super effectively. It's the same scheme. And maybe that's the underlying thought we should take away here. And maybe, teams that, the Mike Shanahan tree, the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, all the coaches that come off that scheme seems to be work really well if you get the right quarterback in it. And CJ Stroud seems like the right quarterback in that scheme. Mark Spafford wants to know any players that didn't have the stats for whatever reason this year, but you think will make a big jump next year. I mean, there's some guys that I think disappointed who are going to come on a little bit, like Cooper Kupp's going to be a bargain for me. I'm going to have a lot of Cooper Kupp on rosters just because he's going to be super, super cheap, right? Relatively speaking. Could he have, do I expect him to rebound to the full Cooper Kupp? No, Puka Nacua is going to be a limiting factor. There's no doubt about it. But all the other pieces are in place for Cooper Kupp to have a decent season if he's healthy. And this year I won't be paying first-round draft capital for him. I'll be paying 5th or 6th or 7th or somewhere in that range. The JSN clip being asked if clearly didn't gel with him. I wonder about that because, I've talked to Matt Waldman about this. I think it's interesting because Matt Waldman felt like Shane Waldron was brought in to do a process of installing that Shanahan tree offense, that scheme, and that at some point JSN was going to be the Seahawks Cooper Kupp, take that similar role in that Ram style offense. Shane Waldron, formerly the tight ends coach under McVay, and then moves to Seattle. And this, some people saw this as a shift going from the run heavy mindset that Pete Carroll had into a more pass happy, maybe a more modern offense. and that JSN was going to be that guy. So JSN not being on board, it was just interesting. Maybe he thought this should have been a faster process. It was interesting though. JSC thinks Marvin Harrison Jr. goes to either Cardinals, Patriots, or Colts. Which one's likely? I think the Cardinals are the most likely. I still think the Patriots need to get a quarterback, but also the Patriots trading down a spot or two to someone who wants one of those top quarterbacks more, and them going, maybe a little later on a quarterback. According to Jim Harbaugh, JJ McCarthy should probably be the first quarterback off the board, and he won't be. So, do you believe what Harbaugh is selling on McCarthy? That's interesting. Let's see. Who would you like to see on next year's Hard Knocks? Wendy Early would like to see the Bears. Bears, Broncos, or Saints? Got to be the Broncos for me, man. What the hell are they going to do? They got a lot of sorting out to do. Just seeing how angry Sean Payton's going to be every day will be great. How high am I on Drake London next offseason? I refuse to ask about Kyle Pitts. I think these guys are all guys that are on that list that Mark Spafford was asking about, guys that underperformed that have a chance to rebound. All this is going to depend on the quarterback, though, right? I mean, that to me is a big question for a handful of teams. Minnesota needs to figure out their quarterback. I hope it's Kirk Cousins. I would love to see him come back on a somewhat cap-friendly deal that allows him to pay Justin Jefferson all the money on earth to be their top wide receiver. I would like to see those guys together. We talked about this in last week's Ask Me Anything live stream, the situations of uncertainty, especially at the top of the ranks. And for me, Justin Jefferson, he's going to be great, right? No matter who the quarterback is. He is Justin Jefferson. But if he has a quarterback that can facilitate and allow him to reach the heights of Justin Jeffersonianness, I just coined a phrase there. You're welcome for that. They allow him to maximize his abilities. And I think Kirk Cousins has shown the ability to do that. A quick reminder, Kirk Cousins, quarterback 4 over the 8 games that he played last year from a fantasy perspective. I just think that, that I'd love to see that. But the quarterback's going to be the key there in Atlanta as well as it is. So is it going to be Justin Fields? Could it be Kirk Cousins? Could be. So that's going to be the determining factor. There's a lot of dominoes to fall. And, and if you're drafting early in best balls or mock drafting or doing whatever you're doing, I mean, you're going to have some shares of players that end up being totally in certain situations you have that you don't foresee, or maybe you foresee them but you don't know for sure. So we'll all be watching for that. I think it's going to be that's always the fun of drafting this time of year. That's why I talked about it at length in the last podcast. What I say Stephon Diggs' year-end slump was from the OC Ken Dorsey firing and Joe Brady taking over. I think it was a multivariable equation, not a single variable. The coach was part of it. Joe Brady obviously went run heavier. But there was more to it than that. I don't know that we've heard the whole story. I thought Stephon Diggs and his comments over the Pro Bowl weekend was interesting. Not sure if he'll be back. I don't think they can afford to move on from him, even if they wanted to. Hey, Toronto Dave. Thanks for coming in, man. TJC. So yeah, I think that so I've thought about this a lot. Are we going to look back on Stephon Diggs the last 9 games of the season as a blip on his career radar, and he finishes stronger? I think I might buy that dip. I've seen him go as late as the 3rd round in some of the early mocks. I mean, there's some point where these people become great values to me, and he would be one of those marks that I think is, even if he doesn't rebound, the price might go cheap enough that he doesn't have to fully rebound to return value. I think we overplay these things. And boy, if you remember the last thing you saw of Stephon Diggs was a 5-point fantasy outing, right? I mean, not a great game. So that's going to affect his price. It's going to suppress his value. And those are the kind of players I'm looking for. Bills cap is over. The Bills are over in the cap, but I don't know that they save enough money by moving on from Diggs. It may cost them more money to move on from Diggs than it does to cut them, and that's going to be the issue. But we'll see. It's entirely possible, right? I mean, we're still early on in the process. I think even as a post June 1 cut, that he still costs them more to move on than it does to the value is there to keep him. The way things change, if you would have told me I'd be better off with CJ Stroud over Mahomes during the regular season, Laporta over Kelsey, and Kyron over Eckler, there you have it. That's exactly right. So I think, like Laporta over Kelsey is, it was pretty close. I would say that was a push. But even that, if you would have told me Laporta, like what were there? let me just bring up the totals because I think it was I like Kelsey did not have a horrible season by any stretch of the imagination. Laporta had a great season and 10 touchdowns. I think it was 10. It was maybe more than 10. Let's see. Let me bring up my final numbers here. Tight end. So Laporta 235.3 fantasy points, Kelsey 230 or 221. Evan Ingram actually outscored Travis Kelsey as well. Evan Ingram down the stretch was unstoppable. Man, the volume that guy had down the stretch was impressive. But Kelsey's per game average was higher than both of those guys. He had 14.8 points a game. TJ Hawkinson had 14.7. Both of those guys were higher than Laporta and Evan Ingram, who both had 13.8 a game. So, but yes, in general, I mean, not to diminish your point, that's totally true that all these guys, that's the joy of this game, right? And part of the joy of that is people will be overpaying for some of these assets next year, opening up values for other players, right? Travis Kelsey is going to be a value this year, probably. I've seen him go anywhere 3rd round, 4th round. I've seen him the first tight end off the board and already won one of the mocks. So we'll see about that. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. Eckler, who knows what's going to happen with that guy? I know our buddy Fabiano was talking to him over the weekend in Vegas and just said he doesn't know. Where do I see Justin Fields going? I see him going somewhere, probably Atlanta, but I don't know. It seems like the Bears are starting to lean towards moving on. If you went to Football Guys, Dave Kluge did a great article there just kind of outlining why the Bears need to move on. It's funny because we ask everybody who comes on the radio program, all the dynasty people in a dynasty startup league, where does Anthony Richardson fit in with this year's quarterback class? And it's invariably number 2 behind Caleb Williams, who, the talk is of generational passing talent. Are all the other pieces of him there? Los Angeles people, are all the other pieces there? Here we go. The watch is on. Swift has left Tokyo en route to Vegas. I believe that ensures she'll be there in plenty of time. I'm very excited about this. I love all the. I like seeing people get all worked up about it. I don't know. I think it's funny. No other tight end had more than 6 TDs. That was the big factor for Laporta, man. The TDs made a big difference. Does he get the TDs next year? That's a question for me. Are we paying for something that may be hard to duplicate? I think many of us will, right? Many of us might not be me. I might not have a lot of shares of Laporta for that reason. So we'll be discussing all that going forward. I'll have a more focused shows with some legitimate themes next week. I just want to chop up the Super Bowl, get some of your thoughts on the props for this one. And I wonder if CBS has made an effort not to show her. I don't know. Or will she perform at halftime? I don't know if she'll show up with Usher, who I'm told is fantastic. He's not on my playlist currently. Might have to do some study before, but they say he is fantastic. And so I end up usually liking whatever I see of the halftime shows. In the Suite and Tokyo, Japan. Lots of sushi to go around. A Swift experience in the Suite. There you go. All right, everybody. Again, I'll be back on Wednesday for On the Hot Seat. I'll find us a cool guest, come on and chop things up. And we'll start looking ahead and we'll start getting serious about some of these questions you were asking. Kind of often I feel like this is an end of season wrap up show here. I'm just having a good time to shoot the breeze, but we'll get a little more serious about it here and start, sorting out my lists of players and values, players I'm less interested in the field, more interested in the field, start finding who I'm going to be planting my flags on. I appreciate y'all coming here every week. It's been a great season. A lot of changes for everybody here at Football Diehards and all. And no emails watching today. Doing well, everybody. I know a lot of people have asked about him. He'd love to hear from you. If you haven't sent him a note, send him a note, email.cadlick@gmail.com. And much love to you, sir. And we'll start getting ready for 2024 in earnest, right? I mean, we've talked about it. We've kind of, danced around the edges of some of these questions. It's time to get a little more serious about it. And that's what I'll be doing going forward as we get a feel for it. A few other comments. Lincoln Riley talked up Caleb, obviously, about how he's low maintenance. He just loves ball talent for sure, but who knows how it translates in the NFL. I think I don't want to overplay, some of the moments, of, the emotional moments. I think people put too much on that. I mean, it's an emotional game, right? I mean, you weren't mad that you lost or you weren't upset about a loss. I don't know what that says about you that being emotional about it does. I mean, right? I mean, like we read a lot into a lot of little things, and I'm not sure we should have. So appreciate everyone coming. Yes, more goofy stories from crazy people. That makes the world go round. Uh, oh, which offense am I watching because of the coaching change? So I think I think there are, I think more than one. Before I get out of here, I'll just go ahead and get on this because I do think these are situations we have to watch. So the coordinator moves that I think are the most interesting. Zach Robinson going from LA to Atlanta. Another one of the McVay Shanahan style trees. If you remember, last time a head coach, Dan Quinn in Atlanta, had great success. Who were his assistants? Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Zach Taylor, all the same crew. And Zach Robinson comes from that. I think Dave Canales calling his own plays, I'm sure, in Carolina interests me to a degree. Shane Waldron in Chicago, we'll see what goes on with that. I don't think much of the changes in Cincinnati but Cincinnati for sure. And I don't know, in Buffalo or in Cleveland, Ken Dorsey, is he going to make a difference, or is Kevin Stefanski going to keep the role? I know Zach Taylor will in Cincinnati. Greg Roman's a big concern in Los Angeles, as is Harbaugh. What does this mean for Justin Herbert? It's concerned. Luke Getsy didn't have a ton of success in Chicago, but they did run the ball well, and that's what they want to do in Las Vegas. Alex Van Pelt, I don't know that makes a ton of sense in New England to me. It depends on who the quarterback is. Clint Kubiak, kind of bringing that Shanahan Kubiak style offense makes sense there as well. Kellen Moore to Philadelphia looks like a great move. Arthur Smith to Pittsburgh, I think, is probably going to turn out better than everyone thinks it is. Liam Cohen to Tampa Bay probably keeps Baker Mayfield in place and is probably a good fit. I think Brian Callahan running the Tennessee offense, he's had great success with quarterbacks throughout the course of his career, and hopefully he can do the same with Will Levis. And Dan Quinn bringing in Cliff Kingsbury. I expect to see Terry McLaurin lined up in the same damn spot every snap and nobody to go in motion. We'll see how that works out, if that works out for Washington better than it works out for anyone else. All right, everybody. Appreciate y'all so much. I'll see you here Wednesday, and then again next Saturday. We'll keep it going. Talk to you later. I'm Bob Harris. Over out. By the way, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio today, 3 p.m. Marcus Grant on, Eric Romoff on. Check it out. And then tomorrow, the Super Bowl roundtable on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm Bob Harris. Over and out.